Hi everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Allplane Podcast, where we talk with the movers and shakers that are redefining the future of commercial aviation. Before we dive into today's conversation, I would like to remind you that all previous episodes of this podcast, along with many other interesting stories about innovation and sustainability in aviation, are available on the Allplane website at Allplane.tv. Allplane.tv. And I would also like to invite you to subscribe to our newsletter, which focuses on sustainability in the aviation industry. You can find the subscription link right on our website. And now it's time for today's episode. Today we're getting back to electric aviation, which is one of the most fascinating parts of the so-called advanced air mobility revolution. There is in fact no shortage of startups developing electric aircraft, but our guest today, Dr. Stefan Breunig, co-founder and managing director of a German company called Albatross, is keeping his feet firmly on the ground. Stefan is an early pioneer of electric aviation. In 2017, he took part in the eFan project, which was a joint effort by Airbus and engineering giant Siemens to develop an experimental electric aircraft, which actually ended up crossing the English Channel in a feat that was somehow reminiscent of the one that Louis Blériot completed a bit more than a century earlier. After that project was wound down, Stefan moved to Rolls-Royce, the engine maker, which for a number of years was a leader in electric propulsion research. With this wealth of experience in electric aviation, Stefan's next move was to co-found Albatross, which is a startup that works together with airports in order to prepare them for the electric flight era, and hence my comment about having his feet on the ground, because what Albatross does is work on the ground side of electric aviation and also help airports to potentially develop new income streams on the back of electrification. Because for the electric aviation revolution to happen, the right infrastructure must be in place. As Stefan will tell us, this is a field in which progress has been less than steady. In fact, sometimes for every couple of steps forward, you take one step back. And this has been reflected also in the evolution of Albatross's business model, which has pivoted a bit in the last few years. From being first a developer of electric airport projects, it has moved on to more of a consulting role, also advising airports on how they can handle this electrification challenge. Nevertheless, things are moving in electric aviation, even if slower than some of its early proponents expected. And Albatross continues to engage with companies in this space, sharing the experience accumulated over so many years working in electric flight. This conversation is in fact about a lot more than Albatross, because we will also have the opportunity to zoom out a little bit and have a look at the forces that are currently shaping electric aviation in Europe. But I think it is best if you can hear it all directly from Stefan. So without further ado, let me welcome him to the podcast. Hi Stefan, how are you?
Hey, I'm very fine. I'm really happy to be here.
Likewise, great to have you here. I think we've been trying to find a time for this podcast for quite some time. You guys at Albatross, you've been working in electric aviation for quite some time. And we're going to talk now about basically what you guys are doing and what are the general perspectives of electric aviation, mostly in Europe, but we can talk as well about the global landscape. First of all, like any other guest, I just would like you to introduce yourself in a few words and tell us a little bit about your background, because you've got quite an interesting experience at Siemens, then at Rolls-Royce, working in electric aviation projects, right? So yeah, tell us about yourself and how you got involved with Albatross.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to do so. First of all, I'm a really big fan about your podcast, so I was really excited to get on this podcast. And well, it's also because of my background that I've been listening to everything involving electric aviation that was there in form of podcast or news.
Thanks for the kind word. We tried to get a few guests in electric aviation, and some of them I'm sure you know them pretty well. I mean, like we've got Iridium, we've got Eve, the eVTOL developer. We've got quite a few companies that are active in this field. So yeah.
I mean, it's a small ecosystem. Like whenever you go to Farnborough, Paris, or Ila, it's always like a little bit like a class reunion, right?
Indeed.
And I was very fortunate. So I entered this ecosystem in 2017. So I'm a mechanical engineer by training, and I did my PhD in innovation and technology management.
You're a real pioneer. Like in 2017, I think like very few people
Yeah,
talking about sustainable aviation, let alone electric aviation.
yeah, and this was actually a really interesting story. So I was hosting a course on innovation and technology management for executives, and one of the participants was, yeah, a very dear colleague, and he introduced himself and said, "Well, I'm leading a team of 100 people in Siemens that we're just building up, and we were going to work with Airbus on electric aircraft." And I was like, "Wow, that sounds very interesting." At that point of time, I was mainly working on electric cars with German automotive and machinery industries. And well, that got me really excited. So I think 1 week after that course, I sent him my application, and a couple of weeks later, I got my contract with Siemens.
Cool.
And
You're an engineer by background, right?
I'm an engineer by background, yeah, mechanical engineering, but I always focused on the business and strategic side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And well, he brought me down there, and actually, first thing he told me, the job you asked for, you applied for is already gone, but I have a new one. I want you to introduce everything that you taught in innovation technology management into the new unit that we're building. So I was able to work on these topics, the technology road mapping, technology scouting, how we yeah address this new market, and but it was not really a market back then. It was still really early technology development and aircraft studies that we mainly did together with Airbus.
Yeah, I remember there were even some kind of demonstration stunts. I think a flight across the channel, I think that was
Yeah. So
back
there were
then.
the really early innovation activities, like with the EFAN that flew
Yeah,
across the channel.
yeah. I think that aircraft
Um,
is now at the Aeroscopia in Toulouse, I think.
yeah, it is. So real pioneering. I think this was in 20 around 2014.
Okay, so it was even earlier than you joined
Even
them.
earlier. But
Uh-huh.
when I joined Siemens, actually in 2016, Siemens broke the world speed record for an electric aircraft
Mm-hmm.
in multiple categories with the extra 330 LE, which was really exciting with 260 kilowatt motor. And all the time when I worked at Siemens, we did a lot of flight testing. We had a unit in Budapest with an incredible team there and close access to an airfield. So we had three aircraft from Magnus, a small Hungarian airframer, and
Mm-hmm.
we were able to, yeah, do a lot of testing with all electric powertrain, with swappable batteries, with a diesel hybrid. So a lot of early testing of technologies, and this was really exciting. And actually, in my second week at Siemens, so September 2017, I was able to fly in an electric aircraft
Oh,
with
wow.
our CEO at the time, with Frank Anton.
Yeah.
Shout out. He's also a real pioneer in the field.
There's a bit of
And
a Wright brothers feel about all this, what you were telling me.
yeah, it was really exciting. It was really exciting. I remember standing on the runway in Oberpfaffenhofen, close to Munich, and there was some wind coming up, and the propeller was spinning the other way, and I was like, "Hey, are we now recuperating?"
Mm-hmm.
Which wasn't possible at the time, and it's still not possible with certified aircraft because there is no certification basis for recuperation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but nonetheless, it was really motivating and exciting, and it was some time. Then actually last year was the second time, and the third time I flew in an electric aircraft. So it shows you how early we were at Siemens with getting those aircraft into the.
Which aircraft was it the last two?
So last year, well, the Pipistrel Velis,
Okay.
which it was
Yeah.
long overdue that I was able to fly
Mm-hmm.
with it, and the Electra Solar, Electra
Yeah.
Trainer here from Landsberg, close to Munich, certified ultralight with
Yeah.
an endurance of 3 hours. That was also really nice.
Yeah, I had the chance to see this electrosolar from very up close because was it I think 2 or 3 years ago we did this challenge with Morel Westerman, who is
Yeah.
been a guest of the podcast, and he organized this kind of rally across Germany of an electric aircraft and an
Mhm.
electric solar and an electric car all the way from Bavaria to the North Sea. and that was also pretty cool. And yeah, actually, I think the aircraft managed to do it in like two or three stops. I will need to check now, but yeah, pretty
Mhm.
impressive. About 800 kilometers. I think.
Yeah. So the aircraft offers quite a step in terms of endurance, also because it's basically a glider,
Yeah,
has a really good L over D, and
yeah.
so that makes it quite special.
And then you
Uh,
moved to Rolls-Royce, right? After.
yes, exactly. So in 2019, so we had great achievements in this collaboration with Airbus, with the City Airbus. That was the heaviest eVTOL that we
Yep.
started flight testing in 2019.
Yeah.
That was really exciting. But Siemens, well, it was a time of transformation. Well, Siemens is always in some
Yeah.
kind of transformation. But
It's a
at the
giant
time,
company.
they just,
It's a
yeah.
it's
It
got
is, and
a lot
then
of
at
things.
that time they started to like split up the group into different areas, and they asked themselves, well, is aerospace an area where we want to be in the future? And the answer was no. So we were tasked to find a new home for our unit of around 200 engineers.
Mhm.
And we found it in Rolls-Royce, which at the time was a really good move because there was already a small electrical team in Rolls-Royce. And then we brought almost 200 engineers from Siemens over
Yeah.
and really accelerated the electrification story at Rolls-Royce.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Rolls-Royce, after a few years working on electric, also decided that it was not core business, and they
Yeah.
basically closed it down or they spun it off. I don't remember. Did anyone else buy this part of the business, or they just closed it down?
Yeah, now you're jumping at to the end of the
Uh-huh.
second part, yeah, which
Yeah.
is a little bit similar to Siemens. It's
Mm.
also a transformation within the group. So maybe let me take one step back. So when I joined Rolls-Royce,
Yeah.
I then assumed responsibility for strategy of the electrification division of Rolls-Royce Electrical. So key focus then was technology was still a big focus, but also on what are the markets, what's the market potential, how are the business cases for certain products that we can bring into this propulsion market. And so it was really focused on developing these markets. And we had great success in securing key customers in UAM and eVTOL customers, but also regional air mobility customers. And we did a lot, which is not maybe that obvious to the public, but we did a lot of bringing electrical technologies to the other businesses, to defense, business aviation, stationary, energy systems.
Just
Yeah.
one parenthesis here, because you mentioned UAM, just a clarification for whomever doesn't know the
Yeah,
acronym, is urban air mobility. So basically,
exactly.
that
Yeah.
will include all the short-haul eVTOLs and other vehicles designed to move in a short range, mostly in cities. But I know this is an acronym. I think it's fallen a bit out of use. I think more in favor of advanced air mobility or regional air mobility. I think which is a bit more flexible, at least in the definition.
Yeah. So, well, I worked in strategy, so I did the market segmentation and everything.
Mm.
Everyone does it slightly different, right? There is
Yeah.
EASA's defining a little bit different than NASA. I think what is one definition that is very commonly used is that advanced air mobility
Hmm.
as a headline. That's summarizing these new forms of electric, hybrid,
Yeah.
novel mobility solutions.
Yeah.
And I would divide AAM, advanced air mobility, into starting with UAVs, with unmanned aerial vehicles, drones,
Hmm.
right, that are unmanned. Then the eVTOL segment,
Yeah.
which is quite often synonymously used with UAM.
Hmm.
But quickly people realize it's not just going to be urban, they're going to fly further. So the eVTOL segment, and then also like regional air mobility with fixed wing aircraft up to 19 seat. So for me, and I think there is the biggest consensus for this definition, to have everything from drones that are flying without passengers up to 19 seat. You can also argue that larger aircraft could be advanced air mobility, but typically that's the definition. Also, what NASA is using.
Yes, and also it's a lot difficult for the startups that are kind of redefining this segment to work on larger aircraft. It's a whole step
Yeah.
change in the capital requirements and capabilities that are required. Yeah, so you were at Rolls-Royce, and Rolls-Royce actually had a very interesting program to develop electric engines and electric motors. I remember I visited the plant in Dahlewitz near Berlin.
Hmm.
They showed us the work they were doing there, and then yeah, unfortunately there was this change in strategy, and yeah, they decided
Hmm.
electric was
Yeah.
no longer in the roadmap. Yeah.
Yeah, that happened. So a little bit of a deja vu coming from Siemens. So the broader context is that after COVID and with the Trent 1000 issues, Rolls-Royce was in a financially unsustainable situation, I would say. And the new CEO, Tufan Ergin, who joined 2023, he started a complete strategy assessment of the group, where I was also part of, which I was part of. And then, as a result of this strategic review, also transformation of the group. And November 2023, it was announced that what are the core markets? The core markets will be larger gas turbines, it will be business aviation, defense, power systems for like governmental and stationary. And a lot of other fields were put into, let's say, the divest and exit bucket or the partner bucket, where partners, where they were aiming for partnerships. And it was clear that it was communicated that advanced air mobility was seen as a non-core market that was communicated to the market. Um, and the way to deal with the unit was to have the advanced air mobility as one unit and try to bring it into a partnership that would make it commercially successful. But bring it out of the Rolls-Royce, away from the Rolls-Royce balance sheet, right? So that was more or less what was communicated externally. And I cannot go into any details. Of course, I was also working on M&A, so that was what I was mainly doing then the past 2 years at Rolls-Royce.
You got a first row view of what's going on.
Yeah. But I mean, what was communicated that it was not in the end successful to secure that partner and that future. And Rolls-Royce was focusing on its core. So the decision was to shut down the AAM business. But at the time, we had AM was one big part of it with everything, these market segments that we talked about. But as part of electrical, there was also all the activities supporting the other businesses. And this remains. This remains in the group. So electrification, more electric engines for business jets, business aviation. Anything that supports defense programs,
When
because
you say
there is
more,
a
when you say more electric engines, you mean that some of the functions, some of the
yeah.
mechanisms inside the conventional thermal engine might be driven by electricity.
Exactly. So for business aviation, business aviation engines, this could be replacing a pneumatic starter with an electric starter engine, and this would help to improve the design. Also, you can reduce fuel consumption. So there are a lot of areas where additional electrification brings benefits to gas turbines. And for defense, there's also a requirement for more electrical power on defense platforms, on different types of aircraft. So electrical generators are also an important building block there. And so these activities, they remained within Rolls-Royce. So Rolls-Royce is not completely stopping electrification, but Rolls-Royce has stopped the focus on these new market segments that are, quite frankly, quite far from the core market segments, which are large wide-body aircraft and the big high-performance business jets.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess if you look at the gigantic size of the other markets, I mean that's a really small part that it's yeah. I mean, even if it's valuable, it's a small footnote almost in the
Yeah.
to the big. I mean, the idea is that it will grow eventually, but at the moment it's a relatively small part. But there is actually electric remains a bit the preserve of dedicated electric centric startups. I mean, we've mentioned Veridion, which is based in Germany, and I know you know very well, I think, because you've been collaborating, I
Yeah.
think, in some projects, and there are other companies like Elfly, Norway, Electron in the Netherlands, in the US as well. There are a few. I mean, hybrid electric as well is a thing. So that's, I guess, this idea that the electric is eventually making progress, and it's going to happen if not through these main players like Siemens and Rolls-Royce. It's going to be other players that are going to bring it to the market, and then I guess that's your next step. What took you to your next step, which was to establish Albatross, right? So
Yeah.
what can you tell us about Albatross? Because I think
Mhm.
you've been also refining your approach as well, what you're trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Also
yeah,
some headwinds in this business. So um, already during my time at Rolls-Royce, I was focusing on the broader ecosystem. For example, we had a collaboration with Skyports to bring together our knowledge around maintenance infrastructure with vertiports.
vertiport.
And
Yeah,
I brought in the Rolls-Royce Power Systems division that does microgrids and large battery systems. So we could bring that together because many airline customers already at the time were asking, hey, Rolls-Royce, you're providing the engines and the batteries. Um, we want to understand how's maintenance going to look like and how's the infrastructure going to look like to support these aircraft. So that's why I quite early looked at those topics. And this brought me to vertiports, so hence my collaboration with Skyports,
yeah,
which is a great team that I really like, and also early collaborations with airports. And I saw they were all excited. They want to be part of this future, but it was very difficult for them to judge. Okay, when are those aircraft coming? What will be the requirements and how to get started?
yeah,
I was never really able to solve this at Rolls-Royce because our core focus was building propulsion systems, not develop the entire ecosystem. Um, but when I left Rolls-Royce, I met with some colleagues, who then became my co-founders. And one of my co-founders, Andreas Kupke, he's actually also invested in Viridian and other uh, electric aircraft companies and is really pushing this ecosystem. And he already started working on Albatross. So he was the initiator.
mhm,
Um, because he saw, well, there are great companies like Viridian working on the aircraft, but who's preparing the ecosystem? So he toured all the regional airports, had a lot of talks, and together with key airports, he developed the overall concept. And then I met him, and it was like, hey, I'm also looking into this topic for quite some time. So we then together started Albatross.
Well, I think it would be a good point to just say, basically,
What are we doing?
what you're doing. Yeah, basically
Exactly.
we can say you're an integrated infrastructure company. So basically, you are helping develop the ground infrastructure that will be necessary in order to kick off this electric aviation revolution, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So,
And that
but the
can
key,
be that can mean different types of interventions at airports, things like people kind of take for granted, but they are not at all in place right now if electric aviation is
yeah,
to operate. And that means a connection to the grid, how to manage the power supply, how to generate electricity, because some airports can also become centers for electricity generation, how to store this energy. Yeah, so basically all the related hardware that you need to be able to distribute this electricity in place. And I think that's relevant particularly for many of the small airports, which is where most of the promise of electric aviation is, because I think it's safe to say that at least for a few years, electric aviation is not really a replacement for the like the mainstream airlines that we are flying now, but more of a replacement or a complement for things like flight schools, regional air travel, opening some interesting opportunities we can discuss now, and other types of missions that are conducted by small aircraft that are the ones that are, I think, most likely to electrify first.
no, well, you did the perfect pitch of our vision and
Okay.
what we want to support. So it starts with enabling electric flight. that's what's driving us. That's what's driving me since 2017. But with Albatross, we also took a bit of a broader vision. So the vision is to transform regional airports and airfields into energy, mobility, logistic hubs. So really develop these assets that are there. We have a very dense network of airfields in Germany and in Europe, in Germany in particular, but also France, Italy. There are a lot of regional airports and airfields. Quite often they are underutilized, and they are typically underutilized and also in financial distress. But they have a great opportunity with electric flight and also with some other topics. So what we did is, or what we're doing is we're working with them on energy projects. So have a PV energy production on site, so photovoltaics on rooftops, surface areas. You have large surface areas at airports and airfields.
Yeah.
You can use them. There are some things you have to take into consideration when building PV at an airfield with glint and glare and other compatibility topics, but it is something standard you can do. You can build battery storage there, which will enable the airport, which enables new business cases, and also can then, in the next step, support charging infrastructure.
I was at Nuremberg Airport earlier this year, and they
Yeah.
showed around this photovoltaic installation they have there. Pretty impressive that they derive a significant amount of their energy for local use at the airport from that solar plant. I don't remember the exact number now, but I think it was somewhere in the double digits of a relatively large airport, because Nuremberg Airport has a few million passengers every year going through.
Yeah. No, absolutely. We see this also. Frankfurt Airport, very interesting, they installed a vertical PV field. So there are rows of vertical PV modules.
What is vertical PV? You mean in the facade of the buildings, or?
Not in the facade, but next to the runway, next to the south runway. They're vertically installed. It's like a fence, more or less like a fence.
Okay.
Could be in multiple rows with a certain distance.
But is it an angle, or is it angled?
No, it's
Fully
really
vertical.
completely vertical,
Okay.
and it's not moving. There is almost no impact from glint and glare on landing aircraft, and it's also quite attractive to have like the early and the morning sun and the evening sun, because that is helping you with the profile. Right now, if you have the perfect south-facing PV that produces a lot of electricity during the day when the sun is on the highest point, typically that's when you have too much electricity in the grid
Okay.
and when the prices are really low. So there are different forms of arrangements of solar panels that are now in use, and at airports, vertical arrangements are one option. And Frankfurt, for example, is doing that. Nuremberg has an east-west configuration, also really good for to support the energy consumption of the airport. If you go to, and all the big airports, they're doing this because they can lower their electricity bill.
Yeah, even in Svalbard, in the up north in the Arctic, up way north of the Arctic Circle, I did an article for CNN about the work they are doing at the Svalbard airport to make it more sustainable, and they were also experimenting with solar energy, which is interesting because they do have 6 months of total darkness, but of course they also
Yeah.
have 6 months of total daylight. Not total, but with many hours of daylight. So kind of compensate, but on a yearly basis more than an
Yeah.
basis.
For 50% of the time, it's an amazing business case. Yeah.
Yeah. Indeed.
So coming back to what we do at Albatross, so our vision is to really think of an airport as an integrated system that can produce energy, that can store energy and like move it around, and then also provide it in form of charging infrastructure, provided to local companies, and really become this energy hub. Now, on the charging infrastructure side, of course, there are EVs, but in the short term, there are also electric vehicles, but also electric trucks. That's quite a big topic in Germany right now. And right now, I'm working with a couple of airports to access German government funding for truck charging sites, because if they're next to the Autobahn, if they're next to a highway, they're really good locations for truck charging, for example.
Trucks that might be just passing through, not trucks that are working at the airport
Yeah,
specifically.
yeah, exactly. So logistic trucks that would drive off, charge there, and the benefit is it's a source of income for the airports.
Yeah.
Um, so someone else would operate it, but they would get, for example, a revenue share.
Electrification of ground support equipment has been a theme in the industry for
Mhm.
quite some time, which makes sense because those equipments they operate in a relatively small perimeter, so it should
Yeah,
should be easy to charge them and then have them move around.
absolutely. So there are a lot of opportunities. I would separate it in land side and air side. So land side, there are EVs, trucks, and you would say, well, how does it help the airport if you start with truck charging to become ready for electric aircraft? But I would say, well, first of all, it's a source of income and that helps the airport. But also when you do the grid upgrades and also install the charging infrastructure, that will also benefit charging infrastructure on the air side if you do it in a smart way. Like not the chargers itself, it's not that you're handing it from airside to landside, but the electrical infrastructure behind, it will bring the airport into a better position than
Mhm.
to install megawatt level charging on the air side.
Mhm.
And on the air side, yes, GSE is a big topic. Typically, you can use AC, so alternating current chargers, relatively low power to, for example, charge the equipment overnight. But then if you have now electric aircraft coming with small trainer aircraft all the way up to a Viridian microliner, which will use MCS, so megawatt charging system, so megawatt level of power. Um, this requires not only the chargers themselves, but also upgrades in the energy system. Because the airfields and regional airports that are best suited to be nodes in a regional air mobility network, they definitely don't have the power and the energy available to support this today. If you talk about megawatt level charging, so they need to prepare starting today.
So it's a matter of investing in a more robust electric infrastructure on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and it makes sense to start today with PV on. So maybe once, if you look at Google Maps on different airfields, maybe you've done that. I've done that quite a lot. You
I
often
do
already,
sometimes, but not as a as a standalone hobby. But
yeah, I maybe do it as a standalone hobby, but quite often there is already PV installed on hangars. But typically everything is fed into the grid, right? It's not used locally. They have 20-year contracts to feed it into the grid because that was very attractive over the past 20 years because there were a lot of subsidies. That has gone. It's not the case anymore. So what airports and airfields should do now is start building PV on hangars for their own consumption, and they should start doing this in conjunction with charging infrastructure. Because typically a standard hangar doesn't have such a big energy requirement. It's a good chance of now scaling up PV with first charging infrastructure for EVs, for ground support equipment, first batteries that can maybe also do energy trading at the grid, which also brings certain revenues. And these are the first steps. And if you can do that in a very economical way, right? Because no one can afford to invest in infrastructure and wait for the aircraft to come. So these are the things you can do now that help you with your electricity bill, that can bring additional revenue streams. And then you can start with a modular design of the charging infrastructure and scale that up with the demand that is coming in from electric aircraft. So that is what we're implementing with customers. And they can start today with very cost-effective steps. And the important thing is to have a roadmap that brings you to where you want to be, for example, in 2030, 35, when you want to serve a number of electric aircraft that are operating in regional air mobility use cases. So that is basically what we're doing right now with airports.
so basically, you help the airports get up to speed with this infrastructure. But what's exactly your role? Are you acting more like as a consultant? Are you helping them get them?
Mhm.
Are you acting as technical advisors? What is your let's say your personal involvement?
Yeah. No, that's a very good and relevant question. And You already mentioned there was some bit of a pivot or some headwinds. So we started this focusing on project development and infrastructure investments. So the key hypothesis is, and that is true, that the regional airports and airfields cannot invest themselves into this infrastructure. They're typically financial distress, and they have this opportunity of having this infrastructure, having space, having surfaces that you can use, but they cannot invest in themselves. So we did a lot of project development, brought in also financing opportunities, and our plan was to develop these projects and then build a business on the energy projects, on battery storage and PV. And battery storage, particular 2024 and 25, was a really hot topic because in Germany, because if you bring large-scale batteries, if you connect them to the grid, you can use them for energy trading, for different reserve services. So different things that can earn back the battery, the asset, the investment in relatively short time. And this was excellent for us as an opportunity to use this to build the business. And also then you would have a battery on site that you can later use for the fast charging to support the high powers that you need to charge these aircraft. We were really successful in building up a network. We have 18 airports that signed MOUs with us with certain exclusivity we are the partner in Germany. Yeah, that we are the partner to develop these energy projects. However, the reality in Germany, and there were a lot of changes over the past 6 to 9 months, is that it's virtually impossible to connect new battery projects to the grid. This is because of mainly regulatory changes and uncertainty. The distribution net operators who need to approve this and actually work with you.
I think in Germany it's a very fragmented electric distribution landscape, right?
Yeah, there are 860 of them.
860.
So
Wow.
860. So there are some larger net operators and also really small ones. So it could be that it's maybe a distribution net operator that only has like 30,000 households, very small.
It's like the whole Roman Empire, and Germany, had all
exactly. Very
of principality.
In Germany, we love fragmented, complicated things.
Well, at the same time, this fragmentation of, this kind of economic activity also I think is a good opportunity also for the electric, is a good business case for electric aviation, because you can then kind of link all these dots without having to go through big centers. You
absolutely.
have all these little towns that have lots of economic activity because you might have large German corporations based in the middle of rural areas. So, not so rural, but very spread out all over the country, not all focused in one or two cities like in other countries.
That's a very good point, yeah. That's why Germany is a really good market for regional air mobility. We are in the middle of Europe. We are a very decentralized country, as you mentioned. There are a lot of hidden champions, so world-leading companies in cities that you've never heard of if you're not from Germany. So the economic activity is quite dispersed across the country. There are some centers of gravity, but overall, it's very decentralized. So the use of underutilized regional airports and airfields close to these companies and this economic activity is something that is really exciting in Germany. And we have a lot of use cases that we've worked on with our airport partners, where we can see, okay, there are certain companies that are already using the airfield with business jets, and they have a lot of subsidiaries or production plants across the country or across Europe, and they're all close to an airfield. So one use case is like a corporate shuttle use case that you can start, that not with business jets that are really expensive, but with electric aircraft up to 9 seat that you can use and avoid business trips that are typically made by car.
So basically, you said that this type of this approach now is a bit in jeopardy because of kind of more regulation. What's been the evolution then? What's the perspective for Albatross and the broader electric aviation landscape in Germany?
So unfortunately, we had to see that from the grid perspective, it's very difficult to connect those projects. Also, the political environment since the beginning of this year have changed dramatically. So the German government is putting new legislation in place which makes PV and larger scale PV very unattractive. Well, we can spend another hour about German politics and why they're doing it. I would put it this way: it's very controversial. It's very in favor of the gas and fossil lobby,
Uh-huh.
and it will bring the development of sustainable energy projects in Germany to nearly a halt, and will definitely slow it down. And so a lot of external changes, and we also had to experience that the grid infrastructure at many airports and airfields is in desperate need of investments and reinforcement, and that the opportunities are very limited. But what does this mean for us as a company, and what does it mean for electrification?
Mm-hmm.
For us as a company, we had to scale back our operations and stop that business model of being a project developer who also invests in these
Actually,
projects.
I wanted to ask you about the business model. So when you say you were developing this infrastructure, you getting paid for consulting work on drawing the plans, or to be an operator under a concession? I mean, what's I have no idea what sort of models are in this field.
Now, the typical model here, if you do this project development, would be you do everything on your own cost together with certain partners.
So you
right?
need
And
to
then
find funding for.
then you get financing for the project, for the infrastructure project, and you kind of start also paying yourself out of this financing.
So basically, the airport is like a let's say like a landlord kind of. And you are setting up shop there with funding that might come from a third party investor.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the airport would benefit because they would be the landlord, and ideally they would also be a consumer of the electricity, and also participate in further sales of the electricity to like third parties like truck charging, etc.
Yeah, I guess there can be several degrees of involvement here and participation on the project. Yeah,
exactly. So this was the model, and it's highly attractive to the airports because they can benefit, but they don't need to invest themselves. And there was also a lot of infrastructure capital that was really eager to invest in projects at these airports. Just the part of actually getting such projects connected to the grid and like the economic environment, the political environment that defines your economy, your economics has changed significantly. That's the main problem.
All these small and regional airports in Germany, are they usually owned by the municipality or by the lender, or who is really the owner of these airports?
Yeah, so they're typically owned. That's in Germany, you can say that almost all of them. There are some private ones, but most of them are owned by typically a mix of the city, the county, sometimes the state. But they're in public ownership.
But usually it's a local or regional level of government.
Yeah, exactly. And for them, they're an important factor to have this airfield, this airport in their region, support the economy of a region. Typically, these airports and airfields, they are loss-making if you just look at the core operations. But then if you start to add up all the tax that is paid to the city and the county, so there is a city tax paid by businesses that are using the airport. If you add that up, plus economic effects with other companies that are in the surrounding, it is typically a very positive story.
Okay.
But you need to convey that. If the core operations is loss making, it's sometimes a bit difficult.
So you have been pivoting from this original concept, and so what is your current approach?
So now we're still working with this concept and with the airports that we started with. We're working with some others now, and mainly now switched a bit to doing this on consulting base. And also we have a really good partner network of partners who are developing truck charging, partners who are really good at investing and building rooftop PV and then provide the energy to the landlord. So we bring in those partners into the relationships that we have with the airports, which is then doing this maybe on a commission basis and with some consulting. And we are still helping the airports where we can, but it's a different business model than how we started.
But your focus continues to be Germany, I guess?
Germany, Austria, Switzerland is where we
Okay.
started, but I'm very open to work with any airport globally, actually.
Okay.
The problems are universal.
Mm-hmm.
For example, in the Netherlands, they have huge problems with grid congestion, so they also need to think about how to make the energy system more self-reliant, self-sufficient. Every country is a little bit different, but you need to have the same integrated view on energy and charging if you want to be successful.
What perspectives do you see for the electric aviation sector going forward? I mean,
Yeah.
we've mentioned a few startups that are right now working on the development of different aircraft types. Then you also know the airports really well. The regulation framework in Germany for sure. What perspectives do you see in electric aviation? Do you think it's going to become? I mean, all these projects are going to come to fruition in the near future. Tell us about your vision.
Yeah, happy to do so. So, I mean, electric aviation, it's already there, right? Since 2020, you can buy the Pipistrel Velis, which is a first product. It's maybe not the range that many people would like to have, but it's an amazing product that you can use to show electric aviation and to fly and to get started to learn. But I see that now, well, the Pipistrel is now in the market for 6 years, right? But we're at a point, I'm actually waiting for the next wave of trainer aircraft that are coming with Diamond, Aura Aero, H55 together with Bristol. There are a number of aircraft that will come into the market and be really good products for flight schools. So you will have increasing number of electric aircraft at these airfields that are used for training purposes. And then really exciting to see what Beta is doing in the US and in Europe. Like
Yeah,
they've done
out in
an
the pool.
extensive test campaign in Norway. So
Yeah.
that's really amazing.
And in other places, I think they were touring Europe. They were in the Netherlands, in Paris, in different places. Yeah.
Yeah, Germany as well. So this is great. We see this coming. We see urban air mobility. So the eVTOL players like Archer and Joby being very active in the UAE and the United Arab Emirates. So they're very exciting topics. So what I want to see, or what is my view, I want to see flight training and people doing their pilot license on electric aircraft being a normal thing, right?
Yeah.
And reaching the tipping point where people will do it because it's a lot cheaper than doing it with a conventional aircraft.
Yeah.
So this is something I like to see. Then I'm really excited to see the first commercial operations of eVTOL because I've worked a lot in this field. I know about all the difficulties, and I'm going to be very interested to see the first ticket prices. They will be quite high at the beginning, and then they need to work on the operating cost. And I'm very interested then in the first data on battery cycle life, because that's the driver for operating costs. But we will see this. Then it's just a question what cost point can be achieved and how will the integration of these services be. This will decide whether it will be a niche or a bigger and a more attractive market. So integration and operating costs will really decide, once we've achieved certification, of course, how big this market will be. In terms of the market, I'm more bullish on regional air mobility. Maybe that's also my Central European perspective because I see the opportunity with all the airfields.
In the US as well. I mean,
Oh yeah,
hybrids like Electra, for example, in the US, it's
yeah.
also generating a lot of interest with these ultra short landing and takeoff capabilities. And also, like, I think in the US, there were also like 5,000 potential airports or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely very, very interesting in this space. My question is, but what's going to happen then with all these obstacles to upgrading the infrastructure? Are they going to be ready in time if these aircraft start flying between the next, I don't know, like 3, 4, 5 years?
So for small aircraft, it will not be such a big problem because the charging powers are still relatively low, maybe up to 100 kilowatts. Maybe this will be sufficient to charge those aircraft. But this will start the development of the infrastructure, and then it will progress to aircraft like the Viridian microliner that might need 800 to maybe 1,000 kilowatts of charging power. And now the grid is the bottleneck, but you can still do a lot with battery storage that supports the charging. And initially, you will always have mobile chargers, and then only when the demand solidifies and it becomes more mature, you will switch to stationary chargers. So even if you have a weak grid, there are opportunities to work with batteries and with mobile equipment and enable the airfield and the airport. So there are ways to do it. I don't think it will be a bottleneck for like getting something done. But if you want to have operations at scale with short turnaround time, you really need to start preparing the infrastructure today and develop an integrated view of your energy and charging infrastructure. So, and that needs to start today, yeah.
One question, actually. Who's going to do the actual fueling? I mean, now you have all these guys going with the trucks and these pipes to connect to the, put the fuel in the plane. But are there going to be like specialized professionals doing this? Or when we're talking with smaller planes, even like the same pilots, the crew might be able to just plug the stuff to the grid. I mean, how is this solved on a practical level?
Yeah, no, that's a very good point, and we've been looking into these topics just recently. So for the smaller aircraft, right, if you use them for training purposes, it will be the pilot or who can just connect his aircraft to the charger and do that. And if it's a private pilot, there are also really good systems for like payment services with AeroPS. That's a German company who's like introducing payment solution all across Europe and now even in the US. And it can already connect electric chargers, and then you can just do it with your smartphone. So very easy for private pilots, very easy for flight schools. If you then think about real regional air mobility, where you have a 9-seater flying, maybe scheduled, maybe on demand or charter between airfields, there I would assume, or my take would be that there would be someone from the airport who anyway puts the blocks underneath the aircraft and needs to do something in the park position, that he would be the one who's also qualified to connect the aircraft to the charger, not the pilot stepping out of the aircraft and doing the connecting it, maybe pulling some equipment there. So there will be ground handling stuff that does the connection, and the pilot will be in the aircraft controlling the charge process. That's how I would see it for these more commercial operations.
Well, in any case, I guess somewhere or another, Albatross will be part of that story. Particularly as you mentioned, places like Germany, in Europe at least, might be one of the places where we see electric aviation first, just because of what we were talking about, characteristics of the market maybe, and also the fact that there are quite a few players now working on this field. But that's going to be interesting coming years to see how this rolls out. If people want to learn more about what you guys are doing at Albatross, which resources or links would you recommend them to check?
So I think the easiest, most straightforward would be just to contact me via LinkedIn. Check out my LinkedIn account and our Albatross LinkedIn account, where we've also recently posted some of our results on energy and charging infrastructure that we've worked on with the German ecosystem. So I would encourage you to have a look and to reach out for anything that you would like to discuss.
Okay, yeah, I'll put a link for sure. And just left for me to say thank you so much for dedicating this time today to us, to explain us how you guys see the future of electric aviation and all the work that you guys are doing to make it a reality through this part, which is often not so talked about, but it's essential to be able to operate. Stefan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's keep in touch to see how this electric aviation landscape evolves.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
If you like this podcast, you can support us by giving it a great rating on Apple, Spotify, or whichever platform you get it from. And remember, you can of course subscribe to it And you can also get regular updates through the Allplane website. That's allplane.tv. We have a newsletter where we cover the aviation industry every week with a special focus on innovation and sustainability. So give it a go. Thank you and goodbye.